The void did not just shake. It screamed. There was no ground beneath them, only the infinite, swirling kaleidoscope of the null realm, a place where time dissolved into nothingness. Yet, even here, the pressure was suffocating. Son Goku lay suspended in the crushing gravity of a single finger, a finger belonging to the Grand Priest. Silver light, the divine signature of mastered Ultra Instinct, flickered and died around Goku's body like a candle starved of oxygen. His chest heaved, ribs groaning under the strain of a power gap so vast it felt like drowning in an ocean while trying to hold back the tide with a spoon. The angelic doctrine, perfect calm, perfect detachment, had failed him. Against the father of all angels, the Grand Priest, neutrality was not a weapon. It was a surrender. Is this the ceiling of a mortal's potential? The Grand Priest's voice was soft, terrifyingly polite, echoing not through the air but directly into the bone. You mimic the angels, Son Goku, but a reflection, no matter how clear, can never shatter the mirror. You are empty. Goku's fingers curled into the void. Empty. That was the flaw. He had emptied his heart to achieve the instinct of the gods, but his Saiyan blood demanded fire. It demanded passion, rage, love, and the primal will to survive. The silver hue in his eyes dulled, replaced by a sudden, vertical slit of golden terror. Deep within his soul, deeper than the God Key, deeper than the Uzaru, something ancient stirred. It was not the whisper of an angel. It was the roar of a dragon, a resonance connected to the very orbs that could rewrite reality. The Super Dragon Balls were not just wish-granting spheres. They were fragments of a creator, Zalama. And right now, that creator's essence was answering the desperate call of a Saiyan who refused to accept his limit. The null realm turned crimson. The Grand Priest's smile vanished. Goku didn't just stand up. The space around him broke. Before the heavens shatter and the hierarchy of the cosmos is rewritten, bind your key to this timeline. Subscribe and ignite the bell, so that when history changes, you are here to witness the ascension. The lake on the Oracle Fish planet was a mirror of absolute stillness, a surface so flat it seemed to hold the sky captive in its reflection. There was no wind, there was no sound. There was only the rhythmic, terrifying hum of a body, moving faster than the speed of thought. Son Goku suspended in the air, his hair a flowing cascade of liquid silver, his eyes devoid of pupils, stripped of all mortal concern. This was the pinnacle. This was mastered Ultra Instinct, the state of the angels, the severance of the mind from the body. He moved through the air like a ghost, striking at Whis with a precision that could thread a needle through a storm. But Whis did not look impressed. The angel held his staff loosely in one hand, his other hand tucked casually behind his back, drifting backward with the lazy elegance of a leaf caught in a gentle updraft. Goku twisted in midair, a movement that defied momentum, and drove a fist toward the angel's throat. The air cracked, a sonic boom imploding instantly under the pressure of divine ki. But the fist meant nothing. Whis had tilted his head a fraction of an inch to the left, his expression one of mild boredom. Again, Whis murmured, the word hanging heavy in the silence. You are thinking, Goku. Or rather, you are trying too hard not to think. Goku grit his teeth, a fatal flaw. The silver aura flared violently, unstable, flickering like a dying fluorescent light. In that nanosecond of frustration, the angelic state shattered. Whis spun the staff, tapping Goku lightly on the forehead. The impact sounded like a thunderclap. Goku plummeted, crashing into the lake with enough force to part the water down to the bedrock. The silver hair faded instantly to black, the divine tranquility replaced by the sputtering cough of a drowning man. He surfaced, gasping, wiping the water from his eyes. His chest heaved, not just from physical exhaustion, but from a spiritual fatigue that had been gnawing at his bones for months. It feels empty, Goku whispered, dragging himself onto the grassy bank. Whis descended slowly, his boots touching the grass without bending a single blade. He looked down at his student, his violet eyes unreadable. Empty? That is the point, is it not? To be a vessel, to let the body react without the clutter of the self? You seek perfection, Goku. Perfection requires a vacancy of the ego. Goku sat up, clenching his fists. The water dripped from his gi, soaking into the dirt. Then maybe I don't want perfection. The words hung in the air, heavy and treasonous. Whis raised an eyebrow. Oh? A bold claim for someone who begged to learn the language of the gods. It's not that, Goku said, struggling to find the words. He looked at his hands, calloused, scarred, the hands of a warrior who had fought for every scrap of power he possessed. When I fight, when I really fight, when it's because I care, it's because I'm angry, or I'm excited, or I need to protect someone. My blood gets hot, my heart beats faster. He looked up at the angel, his dark eyes burning with a sudden intensity. Ultra instinct. It makes my blood cold. Whis. It tells me to forget the anger, to forget the passion. It feels like I'm asleep while my body does the fighting. And I hate it. Whis sighed, a sound like wind moving through chimes. He tapped his staff against the ground, creating a ripple of temporal energy that dried Goku's clothes instantly. The paradox of the Saiyan. Whis mused, his tone shifting from instructor to historian. Your biology is built on rage. The Super Saiyan forms, the Uzaru they utilize, the primal spike of emotion to break limits. Angelic power, conversely, requires absolute emotional zero. You are trying to mix fire and ice, Goku. It is only natural that you are extinguishing yourself. There has to be another way, Goku insisted, standing up. The aura around him flickered, not the blue of the Super Saiyan God, nor the silver of the angel, but something faint, deep, and resonant. I remember, back in the Tournament of Power, when I fought Jiren. It wasn't just calmness. It was desperation. It was heat. I need a power that uses me. All of me. The good, the bad, the rage. Whis turned away, looking out toward the nebulae swirling in the distance of the cosmos. His playful demeanor evaporated, replaced by a rare seriousness. There are paths other than the angels, Goku, Whis said softly. But they are not paved with light. They are paved with weight. The angels float above existence. But there are entities. Older entities. Who anchor it? Goku took a step forward, sensing the shift in tone. Who? Whis glanced back over his shoulder. Tell me, Goku, when you gathered the Super Dragon Balls, when you stood in the presence of the divine dragon Zalama's creation, what did you feel? Goku blinked. The memory surfacing. The gargantuan size of Super Shenron, a dragon so large he swallowed galaxies whole. I felt small. But I also felt connected, like his energy wasn't just magic. It felt like the root of everything. Precisely, Whis said. Angels guide the flow of the universe. Kais create the life within it. Destroyers prune the garden. But dragons, Whis' eyes narrowed. Dragons simply are. Their power is not about technique or tranquility. It is about will. Absolute, unyielding will to rewrite reality. Suddenly, a pulse low, throbbing, and golden echoed through Goku's chest. It wasn't pain, it was a call. It vibrated in his teeth, a frequency that bypassed his ears and rang directly in his marrow. Whis saw the flinch. He saw the sudden golden flash in Goku's depths. It seems, Whis said quietly, that the universe agrees with you. Beerus, god of destruction, leaned against the trunk of the ancient tree that housed the oracle fish. His golden eyes narrowed to slits. He had been watching. He always watched. You are making a mistake, Beerus said, his voice low, vibrating with the rumbling authority of a deity who had erased civilizations for less than an insolent glance. The ultra instinct is the pinnacle of martial arts. It is the state of the angels. To abandon it is to regress. It is to choose being a mortal over being a god. Goku stood at the edge of the precipice, looking out at the swirling nebulae. The wind of the cosmos tugged at his gi, the orange fabric fluttering like a dying flame against the eternal dark. He didn't turn around. I'm not abandoning it, Lord Beerus, Goku said, his voice unusually quiet, lacking its typical chaotic cheer. But I'm not an angel. I never will be. When I fight, I don't want to just react. I want to will the victory into existence, even if it hurts, even if it breaks me. Beerus pushed himself off the tree, his tail flicking with irritation. And where will you go? The path you speak of. The path of the dragon. It is not a martial art. It is not a technique you learn in a dojo. It is a primal force. The angels represent order. The dragons represent possibility. Chaos. To chase that power is to invite madness. Goku finally turned. There was no fear in his face, only a calm, terrifying resolution. Then, I guess I'll see what kind of madness I'm made of. He raised 2 fingers to his forehead. The familiar static of instant transmission crackled around him. Don't say I didn't warn you, Son Goku, Beerus muttered, though he did not step forward to stop him. Thank you, Lord Beerus. For everything, Goku said. With a sharp pop, the air where Goku stood collapsed inward, leaving only empty space and a god of destruction staring into the void with a look that hovered somewhere between annoyance and concern. The destination was not a planet. It was a scar on the face of the universe. Goku reappeared in the neutral zone, the desolate expanse of nothingness that separated Universe 6 from Universe 7. This was where the Tournament of Power had been held. This was where the Super Dragon Balls had been gathered, luminous orbs the size of planets that had dwarfed the gods themselves. Now, it was silent. The grand arena was gone, erased from existence. The spectators, the warriors, the Omni-Kings, all gone. But the memory of the power remained. Goku floated in the crushing vacuum, closing his eyes. He didn't search for a key signature. There was no living thing here. He searched for a frequency. He dropped out of his base form, suppressing his energy until he was barely a flicker in the dark. He listened. At first, there was nothing. Then, deep in the grain of space-time, he felt it. A thrum. A heavy, ancient vibration that felt like the heartbeat of a sleeping leviathan. It was the residual energy of Zalama, the creator of the Super Dragon Balls. When the dragon had been summoned, it had torn a hole in the fabric of reality to enter this dimension. That hole had never truly healed. Goku opened his eyes. Far below him, in the deepest black of the void, a fissure glowed. It wasn't bright. It was a dull, magma-colored tear in reality, bleeding a heavy golden mist. The pressure radiating from it was immense. It didn't feel like God Ki. God Ki felt like a heavy blanket. This felt like gravity itself was trying to crush his bones into dust. It was hostile. It was ancient. It was perfect. So, this is where you've been hiding, Goku whispered. He clenched his fists. His body screamed at him to turn back, to return to the safety of the angel's garden. But his blood, the Saiyan blood that thrived on the brink of death, sang a different song. He flared his aura, not the blue of the gods, but the golden fire of the Super Saiyan. It was a primitive form compared to what he knew now, but it felt right. It felt honest. Let's see if you accept me. Goku dove. He streaked through the void like a comet, plunging straight into the golden rift. The moment he crossed the threshold of the tear, the silence of space vanished. A roar loud enough to shatter planets filled his head. It wasn't sound, it was pure will. Who dares? The voice didn't speak in words, it spoke in concepts, slamming into Goku's mind with the force of a physical blow. Goku screamed, the golden light swallowing him whole. His barrier shattered instantly. His skin began to blister under the heat of a million years of unrefined magic. He was falling, not through space, but through history, through the heavy, molten dreams of a dragon god. The world turned gold. Then, it turned black. Goku awoke to the sensation of being buried alive. There was no sky, no ground, only a churning, molten haze of amber and crimson. The air here was thick, viscous like soup, tasting of copper and ozone. Every breath was a labor, requiring a conscious effort to expand his lungs against a pressure that sought to flatten him into a two-dimensional stain. He tried to push himself up, but his arms trembled violently. It wasn't just gravity. Gravity was a physical force, a simple law of mass. This was dominion. The very space around him seemed to resent his presence, pressing in on his skin, weighing down his soul. Where? Goku rasped, his voice sounding small and tinny in the dense atmosphere. He reached deep, instinctively tapping into the well of God Ki. He sought the familiar cool blue fire of the Super Saiyan Blue, the divine energy that had allowed him to trade blows with destroyers. Nothing happened. The God Ki did not flare. It suffocated. It was as if a candle had been lit at the bottom of an ocean. The atmosphere of this realm was too heavy, too ancient. The refined, precise energy of the Kais and the destroyers was too delicate to exist here. This was a place that predated the hierarchy of the gods. This was the chaos before the order. Goku forced himself to his feet, his knees buckling. He was in his base form, his gi torn, his body screaming. You bring the scent of the attendants. The voice did not come from a direction. It came from the fog itself. The amber mist swirled, coalescing, thickening, until they formed a shape that blotted out the horizon, a massive, serpentine head, lowered from the gloom. It was not physical flesh, but a construct of golden light and ancient runes, its eyes burning like dying stars. It looked like Shenron, yet infinitely more terrifying, stripped of the benevolent magic, leaving only the raw, predatory majesty of the dragon archetype. Goku staggered back, his boots skidding on a surface that felt like warm glass. Zalama. The great head did not move, but the pressure intensified. I am the echo. The residue. The breath left behind in the crack of the world. You are the Saiyan, the one who touched the calmness of the angels. The eyes narrowed, vertical slits of judgment. You are a contradiction. You carry the blood of the conqueror, yet you practice the art of the surrender. Why have you come to the womb of the dragon, little saint? I'm not a saint, Goku shouted, the defiance in his voice cutting through the pressure. He clenched his fists, abandoning the attempt to summon God Ki. He went back to the start. He ignited the golden aura of the Super Saiyan primitive, leaking energy, fueled by rage and exertion. It roared to life, pushing back the amber fog for a fraction of a second. I came because I hit a wall. The angels. Their way is to flow, to let go. But I can't let go anymore. The dragon's echo rumbled, a sound like tectonic plates grinding together. To flow is to be a leaf in the river. The dragon is not the leaf. The dragon is the riverbed. We do not dodge the current. We force the current to move around us. Suddenly, a tail of pure energy whipped out of the mist. It moved with a speed that defied physics, heavy and unstoppable. Goku's instinct, his ultra instinct training kicked in. His body relaxed, trying to slide around the attack, to phase through the danger. It was a mistake. The tail didn't just strike space, it claimed space. There was nowhere to dodge, because the attack consumed the very concept of where. Crack. Goku was launched backward, his golden aura shattering like glass. He tumbled through the void, crashing into a floating island of crystallized energy. He coughed blood, the metallic taste sharp in his mouth. His ribs felt like they had been pulverized. He lay there, gasping, staring up at the amber void. The dodge had failed. The angel's way had failed. You react, the dragon mocked, its voice thundering. You wait for the world to act upon you, so you may dance around it. That is the way of the servant. The servant waits, the king commands. Goku wiped his mouth, his hand trembling. Command, he thought of the Uzaru. The great ape didn't dodge. It crushed. He thought of Broly, a monster of pure, escalating power, who bent reality simply by screaming louder than it. The Saiyan heritage wasn't about neutrality. It was about ego. It was about the absolute, arrogant refusal to die. Goku stood up again. His legs were shaking, but his eyes were changing. The silver of the Ultra Instinct was gone. The teal of the God forms was gone. Deep inside him, the lock that Whis had taught him to fasten, the lock that kept his emotions in check to maintain accuracy, shattered. I get it, Goku whispered. The air around him began to heat up, distorting visually. I'm not here to ask the universe for permission to win. He spread his legs, grounding himself on the crystal rock. He didn't clear his mind. He filled it. He filled it with every loss, every near death, every desire to be stronger. He let the hunger consume him. Show me, the dragon roared, descending for another strike. Show me the nature of your soul, Saiyan. Goku threw his head back and screamed. It wasn't a scream of powering up. It was a command. The amber fog stopped swirling. The ground stopped shaking. For a heartbeat, the dimension froze not out of respect, but out of fear. From the center of Goku's chest, a new light erupted. It wasn't the soft glow of divinity. It was a jagged, heavy, magma-red eruption that tore through his shirt. The breath of Zalama had entered his lungs, and Goku was not exhaling. The dragon's jaw snapped shut, a colossal trap of golden light meant to sever the spirit from the body. It was a bite that had ended stars. It moved with the inevitability of time itself. But it did not close. A single hand held the upper jaw open. Goku stood on the fractured crystal, his boots grinding into the surface. He was not floating. He was anchored, heavy, immovable. His arm trembled under the titanic weight of the construct, muscles bulging, veins pulsing, with a dark, viscous, crimson light. The air screamed as the pressure intensified. The dragon pushed down, the weight of a galaxy compressing into a single point. I said. Goku's voice was a low growl, grinding like stones in a mixer. Look at me. He didn't use the leverage of martial arts. He didn't deflect the force. He absorbed it. The golden mist of Zalama's breath poured into his skin, burning through his pores, seeking to destroy the mortal vessel that dared to hold it. But Goku's body, tempered by the God Ki of the Saiyan beyond God, hardened by the brutality of Jiren, and refined by the training of Beerus, did not break. It adapted. The silver reflexes of Ultra Instinct were still there, firing in the background, calculating the micro-movements of the energy. But the engine had changed. It was no longer running on the cold fusion of tranquility. It was running on the nuclear fission of ego. Impossible! The dragon's voice vibrated, the construct flickering. You mix the oil of the angel with the fire of the beast. You will burn. Then, it'll burn. Goku roared. He squeezed his hand. With a sound like shattering glass, the dragon's jaw fractured. Goku punched. It wasn't a flurry of blows. It was one, singular, calamitous strike. He drove his fist into the center of the golden mist, channeling every ounce of the heavy, ancient gravity he had absorbed. Dragon Fist Calamity. The beam of energy that erupted from his fist wasn't blue. It was a swirling helix of crimson and gold, dense and jagged. It pierced the dragon construct, tearing through the magical weave, unraveling the spell that held the dimension together. The massive serpentine head threw itself back, dissolving into motes of light. The pressure vanished. The amber fog receded, fearful of the new center of gravity in the room. Goku stood alone in the silence. Smoke curled from his shoulders. His gi was gone from the waist up, revealing a torso etched with glowing red Lichtenberg figures, scars of the energy he had just forced into submission. He looked at his hands. They felt heavy, like he was wearing lead gauntlets. But when he moved them, the air rippled, leaving trails of distortion. He hadn't lost the speed. He had simply added mass to the velocity. Dragon instinct, he whispered, testing the words. They tasted like iron. He looked up at the tier in the sky, the exit back to his universe. He didn't fly toward it gracefully. He crouched, cracking the crystal island beneath him, and launched himself like a cannonball, leaving a sonic boom that would echo in the null space for eternity. The garden of the destroyer was peaceful. The water flowed, the birds sang, and Vegeta was currently trying to punch a hole through Whis' face. Vegeta moved in a blur of royal blue, his aura a roaring inferno of evolved god power. He struck with the fury of a prince, every blow designed to maim. Whis, as always, was checking his nails while dodging. Little sloppy on the follow-through, Vegeta, Whis critiqued, leaning back as a kick passed harmlessly through his afterimage. You're telegraphing your anger. Shut up, Vegeta roared, spinning for a backhand. Suddenly, everything stopped. It wasn't that they stopped moving, it was that the world stopped breathing. The birds fell silent. The waterfall seemed to hesitate in midair. The sky above the planet, usually a swirling violet nebula, turned a sickly, bruised purple. Vegeta froze, his fist inches from Whis' nose. He lowered his arm slowly, his eyes widening. He didn't sense ki, he sensed dread. It was the feeling a prey animal gets when a predator enters the forest, long before it sees the teeth. What is that? Vegeta whispered, the hair on the back of his neck standing up. It feels heavy. Like gravity, just doubled. Beerus, who had been napping on a floating rock, opened one eye. Then, both eyes snapped open wide. He sat up, his ears twitching nervously. That isn't a god, Beerus muttered, standing up. His tail lashed violently behind him. And it isn't a mortal. High above them, space didn't open with a portal. It shattered. A jagged crack appeared in the sky, bleeding red lightning. The clouds swirled around the breach, forming a funnel. From the center of the storm, a figure descended. He didn't float down gently. He fell, heavy and fast, impacting the ground with the force of a meteorite. Boom. Dust and debris exploded outward, flattening the trees in a mile radius. Vegeta shielded his eyes, bracing against the shockwave. Kakarot. As the dust settled, the silhouette became clear. Goku stood in the crater. But he looked different. Taller, perhaps? His posture was less slumped, more regal. He was shirtless, his muscles defined and dense. His hair remained black, but it was spiked up sharper, wilder, defying gravity with a static tension. Around him, the air rippled with heat. A thick, heavy aura clung to his skin like a cloak, a deep magma red with flecks of gold drifting in it like embers. But it was the eyes that made Vegeta take a step back. Gone was the warm, goofy darkness of Goku's eyes. Gone, too, was the silver neutrality of Ultra Instinct. His irises were a piercing, luminous gold. And in the center, the pupils were vertical slits. Goku exhaled, and a small puff of steam escaped his lips. He looked at his hands, then at Vegeta, then at Beerus. When he blinked, the sound of heavy eyelids meeting was audible in the silence. I'm back, Goku said. His voice was deeper, layered with a subtle, resonant growl that vibrated in the listener's chest. Beerus descended, landing 10 feet away. The god of destruction looked at Goku, really looked at him, analyzing the energy signature. You went to the gap, Beerus said, his voice devoid of humor. You bathed in the residue of the dragon god. I did, Goku answered. He didn't bow. He didn't scratch the back of his head and laugh. He just stood there, occupying the space with absolute certainty. You realize, Beerus said, purple Hakai energy beginning to flicker around his hand, that the power of creation and the power of destruction are opposites? You are bringing a heresy into my domain, son Goku. I'm not here to destroy, Lord Beerus, Goku said, taking a step forward. The ground cracked under his boot. But I'm done just reacting. I'm done letting the universe decide how strong I'm allowed to be. Beerus narrowed his eyes. The purple flame in his hand grew into a sphere of annihilation. Then show me. Prove that this abomination is worth the risk of erasing you right now. Beerus flicked his wrist. The Hakai sphere, a ball of energy capable of erasing a soul from existence, shot toward Goku. Vegeta gasped. Kakarot, dodge it. Goku didn't move. He didn't shift his weight. He watched the sphere of destruction approach his face. At the last second, his eyes flashed. The vertical pupils constricted. He swatted the Hakai away. He didn't block it. He didn't absorb it. He backhanded the sphere of pure destruction, as if it were a nuisance fly. The ball of energy careened off course, slamming into a distant moon and turning it to dust instantly. Silence reigned. Absolute, terrifying silence. Goku looked at his hand, unburned. Then he looked at Beerus. My turn. Beerus did not smile. The time for amusement had passed. The god of destruction's face contorted into a snarl that exposed the ancient predator beneath the deity. Your turn, Beerus repeated, his voice dropping an octave. Do not mistake a lucky deflection for parody, Saiyan. You are playing with forces that predate your species' entire existence. Beerus exploded forward. He didn't use technique. He used raw calamity. A violet aura erupted around him, so dense it incinerated the grass beneath his feet instantly. He closed the distance in a frame of time too small to measure, driving a knee into Goku's chest. It was a strike that had cracked planets. Thoom! The impact created a vacuum that sucked the air out of the garden. Vegeta was thrown backward, digging his fingers into the earth to hold on. But Goku did not fly back. He skidded 3 inches. Goku's arms were crossed in an X, blocking the knee. His muscles strained, the veins bulging against his skin like steel cables. The magma-red aura flared, wrapping around Beerus' leg, hissing as it met the destruction energy. Is that it? Goku growled. He didn't wait for an answer. He uncrossed his arms and headbutted the god of destruction. Crack. The sound was sickening, like a mountain splitting in half. Beerus stumbled back, clutching his forehead, eyes wide with shock. A trickle of purple blood ran down his nose. You, Beerus whispered, staring at the blood on his hand. The shock evaporated, replaced by a cold, divine fury. You insolent wretch. Beerus extended both hands. Barrage. Hundreds of spheres of erasure fired at point-blank range. It was a storm of annihilation. Goku didn't dodge. He roared a dragon's roar that shook the very atmosphere of the planet. He punched the air itself. Dragon shock. The air pressure compressed into a solid wall of force, slamming into the barrage. The destruction orbs didn't detonate. They were crushed. The sheer density of Goku's ki was heavier than the erasure. It was the difference between a flame and a rock. The flame could burn, but the rock could smother. Goku burst through the smoke, his fist glowing with that terrifying golden red light. He struck Beerus in the gut. The god of destruction doubled over, gasping, his eyes bulging. The force of the punch didn't just hurt, it traveled through him, blasting a cone of energy out of his back that parted the clouds for 1,000 miles. Beerus fell to one knee, coughing. The purple aura sputtered. Goku stood over him, breathing heavily. The vertical pupils in his eyes dilated, taking in the sight of a god on his knees. It was intoxicating. The dragon inside him roared for blood, for dominance. Finish it, the instinct whispered. Claim the title. Goku raised a hand, energy gathering in his palm. That's enough. A staff slammed into the ground between them. Whis stood there, his face uncharacteristically sharp. The angel's halo hovered steadily around his neck, but his eyes were hard. Goku, Whis said, his voice cutting through the bloodlust like a razor. Look at yourself. Goku blinked. The golden light in his eyes receded slightly. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling, claw-like. The heat radiating from him was killing the nearby flowers. Goku stammered, the dragon's voice fading into a dull hum in the back of his mind. He lowered his hand. You have achieved power. Yes, Whis said, looking at the destruction around them. But you are leaking. You are bleeding reality. The universe is not built to sustain the weight of Zalama's breath in a mortal vessel. If you continue to push this form without refinement, you will not just kill Beerus, you will collapse the local cluster. Beerus wiped the blood from his nose, standing up slowly. He looked at Goku with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. Hez right. You feel heavy. It's disgusting. Goku unclenched his fists, the red aura dimming to a simmer. I can control it. I just need time. Time is a luxury you no longer have, a new voice said. It didn't come from Whis. It didn't come from Beerus. It came from everywhere at once. The sky above the planet didn't turn dark. It turned white. A blinding, sterile white that erased the stars, the nebula, and the sun. Whis stiffened, his composure vanishing instantly. He dropped to one knee, bowing his head low. Beerus, sensing the signature, went pale, and immediately prostrated himself on the dirt, ignoring his injuries. Get down, you idiot, Beerus hissed at Goku. Goku looked up. Descending from the white void, floating with hands clasped behind his back, was a small figure in blue and teal robes. He looked like a child, but his presence felt older than the concept of time. The Grand Priest had arrived. The pressure was unlike anything Goku had ever felt. When Beerus exerted pressure, it felt like a weight. When Jiren exerted pressure, it felt like a wall. But the Grand Priest, his pressure felt like law. It was a decree that stated, "You are beneath me." Goku's knees buckled. The dragon instinct roared in defiance, keeping him standing. But his bones groaned under the strain. The Grand Priest stopped 10 feet above the ground. He looked at Beerus and Whis, who were bowing, and then his gaze drifted to Goku. His expression was pleasant, almost fatherly, which made it infinitely more terrifying. "Son Goku of Universe 7, the Grand Priest said softly, "You have been busy." "Grand Minister," Whis said, keeping his head down. "This is a misunderstanding. A training experiment that went." "Silence, my son," the Grand Priest said. He didn't raise his voice, but Whis' mouth snapped shut, as if sealed by magic. The Grand Priest floated closer to Goku. He hovered at eye level, examining the Saiyan. He looked at the magma-red scars on Goku's chest, the vertical pupils, the heavy, archaic aura. "We have rules," the Grand Priest said, his tone conversational. "The angels guide, the destroyers prune, the Chaosians create, and the mortals live and die within that cycle. It is a beautiful architecture." He reached out a finger, hovering at inches from Goku's chest. "But this," the Grand Priest shook his head. "To steal the breath of the dragon god Zalama, to weave the chaotic potential of the Super Dragon Balls into a mortal soul. This is not evolution, Son Goku. This is infection. You have become a glitch in the divine system." Goku gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. "I didn't steal it. I earned it." The Grand Priest smiled. "Does a thief not earn the gold he takes by climbing the wall? It does not make the gold his." The Grand Priest's eyes glowed with a faint violet light. "I am here to correct the error. I will extract the dragon key from your body. It will likely kill you, but your soul will be preserved for judgment." "No," Goku said. The Grand Priest paused. "No," I said. "No." Goku forced his head up, locking eyes with the Father of Angels. The golden slits in his eyes narrowed. "I'm not a glitch. And I'm not done." The Grand Priest sighed. "Disappointing." He flicked his finger. It wasn't an attack. It was a deletion command. A wave of invisible force slammed into Goku, intended to separate his spirit from his body instantly. But Goku didn't separate. Row. The red aura exploded, turning into a solid construct, a phantom dragon head that snapped around Goku's body, biting down on the Grand Priest's force and holding it in place. The ground beneath them disintegrated into dust for miles. Goku stood in the center of the crater, his skin cracking, bleeding light. He was holding back the will of the Grand Priest. "I won't let you take this from me," Goku screamed. The Grand Priest looked genuinely surprised for the first time in eons. He tilted his head. "You resist the mandate? Interesting. The dragon's influence is deeper than I calculated." The Grand Priest lowered himself to the ground. His feet touched the dirt. "Very well," the deity said, unclasping his hands. "If you wish to act like a dragon, then I shall treat you as a beast to be tamed." The atmosphere shifted. The sterile white sky began to crack. Goku dropped into a stance low, feral, his hands curled into claws. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he was about to fight the strongest being in existence. And for the first time since the Tournament of Power, Goku smiled. A wild, terrifying, dragon smile. The battle did not begin with a bang. It began with a correction. One moment, Goku was standing in his feral stance, the magma-red aura churning the earth into lava beneath his boots. The next moment, he was on his back, staring up at the white void of the sky. His lungs collapsed. There had been no movement, no blur of speed. The Grand Priest had simply decided that Goku should be on the ground, and the universe had rearranged itself to accommodate that desire. "You possess mass," the Grand Priest said, standing over him, his hands still clasped behind his back. "Mass requires space. If I deny you space, you have nowhere to exist." Goku gasped, forcing air into his crushed chest. His instinct screamed at him not to dodge, but to expand. Roar. Goku didn't stand up. He detonated. He unleashed an omnidirectional shockwave of Dragon Ki, a dome of heavy, crushing gravity meant to push the Grand Priest back. The ground for 10 miles instantly vaporized, turning the Garden of the Destroyer into a crater that reached the planet's core. The Grand Priest did not move. The red wave of energy washed over him, and simply parted. It flowed around him like water around a stone pillar, unable to touch him. "Crude," the priest noted. He lifted a single finger. "Angelic art." Dismantling. A beam of invisible force struck Goku. It didn't burn, it unraveled. The red aura was stripped away layer by layer. The dragon scales forming on Goku's skin began to flake off. The Grand Priest was surgically removing the power of Zalama from Goku's biology. The pain was absolute. It felt like his soul was being flayed. "You are a cup overflowing with poison," the priest said, his voice echoing with divine authority. "I am merely pouring it out. I am not a cup." Goku's hand shot out. He didn't aim for the priest. He aimed for the space behind the priest. Dragon Claw, space-time tier. Goku swiped his hand through the air. The fabric of reality ripped open, creating a vacuum of such intense suction that light itself bent at a 90-degree angle. The Grand Priest's robes fluttered. For the first time, his balance shifted. The vacuum pulled him a fraction of an inch forward. That fraction was all Goku needed. Goku vanished, not with speed, but by folding the distance. He reappeared directly in front of the priest, his fist cocked, glowing with a terrifying, condensed black and red light. This wasn't a technique. It was the weight of a dying star. He punched. The Grand Priest's eyes widened slightly. He brought his hand up to block. Boom. The impact didn't create a sound. It created a silence so profound it deafened the gods watching. A ring of black lightning expanded outward, slicing the white sky in half. Beerus and Whis were blown back, tumbling through the air. When the dust settled, the Grand Priest was still standing. But he had moved. He had slid back 2 feet, and on his open palm, there was a faint wisp of smoke. Goku stood panting, his knuckles shattered, his arm hanging limp. He had done the impossible. He had forced the Grand Minister to defend himself. The Grand Priest looked at his hand, then at the smoke. He closed his fingers slowly. The playful, fatherly demeanor vanished. The air turned cold, absolute zero. "I see," the Grand Priest whispered. "You are not merely holding the power. You are mutating it. You are fusing the stubbornness of the Saiyan with the authority of the dragon. It is offensive." The priest raised both hands. The white sky turned black. A halo appeared behind his back, not the simple halo of an angel, but a complex, rotating mandala of geometric light. "Playtime is over, Son Goku. I will not extract the power anymore. I will erase the vessel." Goku could not move. The pressure radiating from the Grand Priest was no longer just physical. It was conceptual. It was the weight of the order of all things. Goku felt his dragon ki freezing, the magma turning to cold stone in his veins. The ascended state was failing. The rage, the heat, the will to dominate it was all being smothered by the priest's absolute tranquility. "I'm going to die," Goku thought. The realization wasn't panicked. It was clear. He looked at the Grand Priest, who was forming a sphere of white erasure, energy the size of a sun. The dragon isn't enough, Goku realized. Zalama's power is strong, but it's wild. It fights the current. Against the Grand Priest, fighting the current just makes you drown faster. He closed his eyes. He felt the dragon ki raging inside him, a storm of fire. Then, he remembered the other feeling. The feeling he had discarded. The silver water, the calm, the ultra instinct. Whis said I was trying to mix fire and ice, Goku thought. He said I would extinguish myself. But Goku was a Saiyan. He had spent his entire life doing things that were supposed to be impossible. He had become a Super Saiyan when the legend said only one appeared every 1,000 years. He had combined Kaioken with blue when his body should have exploded. Why do I have to choose? Why did he have to be the river or the rock? Deep in the darkness of his soul, Goku stopped screaming. He stopped trying to force his will upon the universe. He let go. He let the ultra instinct flow back in. The silver light rushed into the cracks of his spirit, cooling the magma, soothing the burns. But he didn't let it extinguish the fire. He wrapped the silver around the gold. He used the angel's calm to focus the dragon's rage. He used the stillness to aim the chaos. The Grand Priest launched the erasure sphere. Goodbye, Son Goku. The sphere consumed Goku. The light was blinding. Beerus looked away, clenching his fists. Whis lowered his head. But the light did not fade. It changed. From the center of the erasure sphere, a sound emerged. It wasn't a roar. It was a hum. A perfect harmonic resonance. Like a bell ringing at the center of the universe. The white sphere of destruction cracked. Rays of light shot out from the inside. Not red, not silver, but a blinding, celestial platinum. Shing. The erasure sphere shattered like glass. Goku stood in the center, but he was no longer the beast that had fought a moment ago. His gi was restored, woven from pure energy. His hair was lifted, flowing and ethereal, shimmering with a color that shifted between silver and gold depending on the angle of the light. His eyes were the most terrifying part. The sclera was black. The irises were silver, and in the center, the pupils were vertical golden slits. He didn't radiate heat, he didn't radiate pressure, he radiated presence. He felt as heavy as a black hole, yet as light as a photon. He looked at the Grand Priest. "Dragon instinct," Goku said, his voice echoing, as if two people were speaking in perfect unison. "God state." The Grand Priest took a step back. For the first time in the history of the multiverse, the Father of Angels felt a shiver of uncertainty. "What are you?" the priest asked. Goku vanished. He didn't fold space. He didn't move fast. He simply occupied the space in front of the priest, as if he had always been there. "I am the answer," Goku said. He raised a fist. The universe held its breath. The punch did not travel through the air. It traveled through truth. Goku's fist connected with the Grand Priest's open palm, but there was no shockwave. There was no explosion. Instead, the fabric of the universe screamed. A high-pitched, glass-shattering frequency tore through the dimension, instantly pulverizing the remaining mountains of the planet into fine sand. The Grand Priest's eyes, usually narrow and unreadable, widened into perfect circles. He slid backward. 1 inch. 2 inches. A foot. The heels of the strongest entity in the multiverse carved deep trenches into the bedrock. The halo behind his back spun violently, grinding against the sheer density of Goku's assault. "This is..." The Grand Priest gritted his teeth, an expression no living being had ever witnessed. "This is not ki. This is weight," Goku roared, his voice layered with the harmonic echo of the dragon. The platinum aura flared, taking the shape of a double helix dragon winding around his body. He wasn't just pushing the Grand Priest. He was rewriting the coordinates of where the priest was allowed to exist. Dragon instinct, God. Absolute domain. Goku twisted his wrist. The Grand Priest's barrier shattered. For the first time in eons, the Grand Minister was exposed. Goku spun, his leg whipping around like a scythe made of starlight. The priest blocked with his forearm, but the impact sent him skidding sideways, crashing through a ridge of stone. The deity tumbled, correcting himself in midair, but his pristine robes were singed. The Grand Priest looked down at his sleeve. It was torn. He looked up, and the cold indifference of the angel was gone. In its place was something sharper, something ancient. "You threaten the architecture," the priest whispered, his voice vibrating with enough power to dim the sun. "You introduce chaos into a system of perfect order. If I do not delete you now, the definition of God loses its meaning." The Grand Priest vanished. He did not move. He simply ceased to be there and resumed existence directly behind Goku. His hand was a blade of white light, aimed at the base of Goku's neck, a kill shot designed to sever the connection between soul and body. Clang. The priest's hand stopped. Goku hadn't turned around. He hadn't dodged. A tail formed entirely of golden energy had materialized from Goku's aura, catching the priest's wrist. Goku looked back over his shoulder. The vertical pupils in his silver eyes glowed with a terrifying intelligence. "The definition of God," Goku said, his voice calm, terrifyingly hollow, "is whatever is strong enough to still be standing." Goku spun, driving an elbow into the Grand Priest's chest. Boom. The Grand Priest was launched into the upper atmosphere. Goku crouched, the ground beneath him, vaporizing instantly as he launched himself in pursuit. They clashed in the sky, a streak of platinum colliding with a beam of white. Every impact created a ripple that could be felt in Universe 6, in Universe 11, in the world of void. The multiverse began to shake. The pillars of creation groaned. Beerus watched from the ground, shielding his eyes, his mouth slightly open. Hez doing it. Hez actually fighting him. Whis shook his head, his face pale. "No, my lord, he is not fighting. He is ascending. But the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Look at his body." Beerus squinted. Through the blinding light, he saw it. Goku's skin was beginning to crack. Fissures of golden light were spreading across his arms, his chest, his face. The mortal shell could not contain the fusion of the angel and the dragon. He was breaking apart. High in the stratosphere, Goku felt it too. The numbness spreading in his fingers, the cold fire eating his nerves. He had seconds left. One strike, Goku thought. "I have one strike left before this body turns to dust." He stopped moving. He let the Grand Priest approach. The priest, sensing the end, gathered the totality of his power into a single point on his index finger. A light that could restart the Big Bang. "End of the line, son, Goku," the priest declared, descending like a falling star. Goku closed his eyes. He didn't scream. He didn't rage. He simply poured everything. The instinct, the ego, the dragon, the saint, into his right fist. He opened his eyes. "Dragon fist," he whispered. "Omega." He punched. A golden dragon, larger than the planet, erupted from his fist. It didn't just consume the sky, It consumed the light. It met the Grand Priest's attack head-on. The world went white. Silence returned to the garden. The dust took an hour to settle. The planet was scarred, a massive trench carved through its equator, but it was still whole. Beerus and Whis stood at the edge of the crater. In the center, the Grand Priest stood. He was dusting off his shoulder. He looked tired. His halo was dim, and at his feet lay Goku. The Saiyan was unconscious. The platinum hair was gone. The red aura was gone. He was back in his base form, his gi tattered, his body covered in steam. He looked small, mortal. The Grand Priest looked down at him for a long time. He raised his hand, his finger glowing with the erasure light. He lost. Beerus whispered, closing his eyes. No, the Grand Priest said. Beerus opened his eyes. The Grand Priest lowered his hand. The glow faded. He looked at his own palm. There was a bruise there. A faint, purple bruise. He did not win, the Grand Priest said softly. But he proved that he exists outside the law. To erase him now would be to admit that the law is flawed. The priest turned to Whis. Heal him, but warn him. The Grand Priest looked up at the sky, where the clouds were still parted in the shape of a dragon. He has opened a door that cannot be closed. The dragon god Zalama will be watching him now, and so will the Omni King. The Grand Priest began to float upward, his form dissolving into light. The hierarchy is broken, Whis. Prepare your student. Next time, there will be no mercy. With a flash, he was gone. Whis exhaled, a breath he felt he had been holding for a century. He walked down into the crater and knelt beside Goku. He tapped his staff against the ground. Green light washed over the Saiyan's battered body. Goku groaned. His eyes fluttered open. They were black again, warm, confused. Did I win? Goku rasped, grinning through a mouthful of blood. Whis smiled. A sad, proud smile. You survived, Goku. In this realm, that is a victory. Goku laughed. A weak, wheezing sound. He looked up at the stars, appearing in the twilight. He reached a hand up, as if trying to catch them. Deep in his eyes, for just a fraction of a second, a vertical golden slit flashed. The power was sleeping, but it was there. The stars burned quietly, as if remembering his will.